Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is our panel about data and the artist experience. That's a real vast field as well as pretty vague. I'm sorry for being harsh directly, but I've seen so many panels at music conferences that talk about data that I really would like, if you agree with me, to avoid the use of data as a sole word without maybe specifying what data or which data we're talking about. We have fans data, marketing data, ticketing data, metadata, artists and authors, text, lyrics, data, everything. So maybe if you can, I love when we are very focused on what we're talking, and data is only information. So which information are we talking about? So let's jump into the things. I'm with three nice gentlemen and one nice lady. To start with, Helienne, maybe you would like to introduce yourself and give us your position in that artist experience and data field, please.
There we go. I'm a songwriter, musician, used to be an artist, used to write a column for The Guardian about the music industry as well, and I'm on the board of BASCA, which is the British Academy of Songwriters, Composers and Authors. And through my engagement of kind of making things better for songwriters in particular, music creators, but in particular songwriters, because I think that we've fallen behind in the digital music space in a lot of ways. I found that actually when it comes to our data that gets us paid, it's a complete mess, and I'm sure that's not news to anybody in here. And that actually part of the problem was me and all my colleagues. Like, the level of knowledge is so low when it comes to how we get paid. Simple things like what an IPI is, what an ISWC is, all these things. Then we go and complain that we're not getting paid correctly, and I realized that actually when I started talking to PROs that they get a clean registration like way down the line. And then I found out through working with Audible, which is a solution that aims to make it easier for songwriters to log all this stuff in the studio, that on average, and this is one of the biggest PROs, that on average they get a clean registration 15 months down the line, 18 months down the line, and the way that the digital services pay, that doesn't work, because what happens with some of them is they start paying according to market share, which is not good for smaller creators, and it's not good for smaller publishers either. So I think my whole stance about that, and also, I mean, not only for getting paid, but also for me as a music fan, being able to get information, the information that I used to get, who wrote, who played on a record, who produced a record, lyrics that are not just user-generated, because they're often not correct in the end. All of that needs to kind of be it all starts with us to a certain degree, but if we don't know that there is a problem, then we don't know that we need to fix it.
All right, so we are starting with an issue there, but very, very major one. Mike, can you just introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Mike Edwards from Audible Magic. I'm now, I hate to say it, I'm in my 38th year in the music business. I've been involved in everything from managing a record label, heading up a music publishing company, starting for major labels, major publishers, starting my own independent label, working with the IFPI in anti-piracy and licensing, and now have been in technology for about the last 18 years. So when I started off, the music industry was a seat-of-the-pants industry. We didn't statistics, other than the charts, meant very little to us.
Charts were the main source of data, basically.
Charts, yeah. And charts were approximate. I mean, they
90%, 80%.
And they were manipulable.
Yeah.
I remember the head of a very big record label sitting in the BPI board meeting, slating people who were manipulating the charts. Then came back to his company, held a meeting with his promotions guys, and said, "You guys get into the chart shops and buy those records."
We're not manipulating anymore today, are we?
So today your charts are governed mainly by Spotify plays. And Spotify plays are governed by playlists. And playlists are
Can I buy streams, like non-regular streams?
There are a lot of companies that claim to be able to
do that,
to manipulate the streams on SoundCloud and on Spotify. And so, yeah, the statistics have to be treated with great care. If something gets to #1 because it's on every playlist, and everyone listens to the song once because it happens to be on the playlist, is that more interesting than a song that gets listened to by 500 people? So that gets listened to by 10 million people. Is it more interesting than a song that gets listened to by 500 people, but each of those listens to that song at least 5 times?
And what you do today, your company, Audible Magic?
Yeah, Audible Magic, we've been involved for the last 10 years in stopping music getting up onto the internet. We work for companies like Facebook and SoundCloud and Dailymotion and Twitter and Tumblr and Twitch. And our job is to tell them when a user-uploaded file contains copyright music. So up to now, it's been what is wanted. Now we're actually using data to go to the record labels and saying, okay, 4 years ago, we stopped 150 million files being uploaded. But last year, we stopped 820 million files from being uploaded. And this year, we're going to stop over 1.5 billion files from being uploaded. And then you can go to the rights owners with statistics like that.
That's
and say,
money.
It's time. Yeah, that's money. Let's turn that into money.
Okay, great. Chris, your turn. What is your take on that artist experience?
Can I ask a question first?
Sure, you can.
What do you mean by artist experience?
Talking about data? Talking about...
No, I mean, like, I understand the data bit. It's the artist experience bit. Like, to me, in my world, that means something totally different to what I think it means to others.
If I am an artist today, do I know better my audience? Do I know better my number of viewers, streams? Do I get to be closer to my fans? And that's the marketing point. Because I didn't introduce myself, but Make the Link is a fans management platform. So we do capture social media fans data, and we translate that into dashboards and into qualified data that can be reused by an artist to get closer to his audience. So that's my take, being with you on the panel. But what is yours?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, I don't come from the music business. I'm just a nerd. And like, I'm dedicating the next portion of my career to helping artists become founders of companies. And if it's the path that they choose, that's what I really care about. And I come from the tech world where everyone's empowered to be a founder. And there's all these kinds of things to help them be one. And their founder experience is what I personally care about. And now that artists are moving into that founder world, to me, this term artist experience is very much like, it's like, how do I, the way I interpret it is that if you're a label or you're a service in the traditional industry, it's like, how do I help them have a better experience in my industry? But for me, that's just, I don't care. The way that I see this question now is like, as an artist, what does data do for you, right?
Okay.
And
that's an answer. That's a point.
Yeah, it's like, what does it do for you if you're not in the industry? And that's where I find it really interesting.
Yeah.
To be really honest.
Because, Helienne, I wanted to ask you, is data already or will be part of the creative process as per songwriting? Machine learning, like having some keywords or text change because of the data, can it influence in some ways the creation part?
Well, it's interesting because I actually have been talking about AI at other panels about, is it going to threaten my job? Is it, are we going to be obsolete and everything? And to me, I think obviously as composers, there are different types of composers. I think the media composers that are doing like production music and library music, that's where you're probably that are going to see some issues with people just going to machine learning because
AI created music.
AI creating music. Yeah, exactly. Well, advertising is one thing because advertisers a lot of the time, they do want something that sounds like something else, as close to something else without getting sued, usually. And sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't work. If it's really big advertisers, they actually want something that is the original, so then you'll be okay. But usually then they want something that is already a hit. I think when it comes to making hits, I don't think that the randomness is so important in that. I think that one of the issues right now is because of streaming and because it's a winner-takes-all kind of payment system to a certain degree. If you want to survive as a songwriter for other artists, then you need to have singles. You can't have album tracks like you used to be able to have. So people are getting a little bit more, they're listening to whatever is going on. Right now everybody wants to be like Despacito, and they want to be, they're doing things that are in that vein, but they're all following what's already been done. And this is no news. It's always been like that in music. You don't want to give people what they want. You want to give them what they don't yet know they want.
You want to surprise them.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that for me, AI, I would use it as if I'm stuck in the studio, and I would use AI almost like a random to get my brain out of if it's going in a certain direction. So it would actually work the complete opposite way for me. It would kind of break me out of the tradition in a way.
I think this is fascinating. Like, I used to make music, shit music, but I used to make music, and or I was ugly. I'm not sure. But like, people kind of forget, like with AI and when it comes to data-generated music, is that there's like 80% of the world, or I'm just making that number up, just pretend it's 80. It's a good number, right? Quote me. Which basically, there's people that listen to music because for music's sake, the sound it has, and Scott Cohen's kind of like devil-like talk about, music is just vibrations in your brain. I love you, Scott. But like, there's a 20% that actually listen to it for the cultural impact that it has and the stuff around the music that really matters. So, there's a category of what I call an artist versus a music maker, right? Where the artists themselves, they don't really care. They're just data and AI, blah, blah, blah. It's just like whatever. And if they're mature about their craft, it's not a threat at all. It's just a thing. You don't make culture through computers. People use computers to deliver culture, which is different.
And in that sense, what do you think about Netflix, Amazon, Apple using lots of data, like consumers' insights?
Yeah, but it's human-generated data. I don't know if has anybody heard of Amazon Studios? You know how it works? It's like there's tons of data to try and pick what shows to make, but it all comes from human-created scripts.
Sure.
And so the first round, a script goes into this highly regulated community of people that they don't think are dicks. And like they review these scripts, and then based upon the ones which get the best kind of emotional reaction, they then push to a first stage pilot, and then the ones that get the emotional reaction, they push to the next stage pilot. And people think, oh, there's loads of data there, it's inhuman. No, it's not. Everything is done and measured and monitored by a human.
Sure, but it's still the challenge to make good use of that data, because it has to make a sense for another service or for a better decision or for a cheaper or a great experience, or a cheaper discounted offer, whatever? Don't you think? Even if it's coming from the humans, especially when it's coming from the humans.
Data's just a thing. Data's like your, I said this before, data's like your sixth sense. You know, if anybody looks at data and goes, oh my God, data, or if they go, oh my God, data, you know, it's just a sense, right, for you to make more decisions on. You've got your eyes, your ears, your mouth, your whatever else, I can't even remember. And data is just yet another one that happens to be plugged into the internet. And if anybody treats it as anything more evil or good than that, I'm just like, wow, boring. Sorry.
That's okay. That was a good point. What about the fans? Because we are on the creators, musicians, and right holder side. What about the fans? Helienne.
Well, I'm thinking, because I am a music fan as well as a music maker. I think that from what you were talking about there, and about, you know, selecting what you're going to be producing next and whatever, you just have to look at something like, let's say, Pop Idol or something like that. Yeah, it worked initially, and then people kind of gotta, you know, when people figure out the wizard behind the curtain, it's not as interesting anymore, and it becomes like, oh, even like the most kind of naive person knows when there's like the violins come in, that's the one that's going to go to the next round. Somebody's going to have like a mom with cancer or something like that, and people after a while got cynical about it, and people want to view something new, and then you got the voice, but now everybody kind of has gotten used to that. So it is. The statistics like that and data like that can only give you so much. You know, I mean, I completely agree. I don't think that there's anything to be worried. I mean, I would say when it comes to music making, and if you're making library and production music, then you should probably like try to kind of expand a bit, because it is something that when music is not actually at the forefront, then I think that AI might be.
Okay. And if I'm taking that seat again from the fan perspective, isn't it a good thing that I would be receiving an email from my favorite artist on my favorite music service? Just if I'm Apple Music subscriber, I would get to see the only Apple Music link guiding me to my a new album, to pre-add it on my library, my own, and like that's the power of data, to be guiding the fans through a funnel of communications based on my location, based on my music taste, on my listening history, that all the streaming service can allow to give via their APIs to any third parties or labels. Is that, are we touching a point that is already, you think, important for you today, and that will become more and more and more important? Mike?
Yeah, I think it is very important for fans. And Spotify has got where it is by having very good algorithms for recommendation, and they do it with people, but they also do it with machines.
Are you happy when you open your Spotify last Friday and you had only Drake themed playlist?
I never listen to Spotify Friday.
Okay. Why? Can you tell us why?
Because that's a sales pitch.
Okay.
So I don't.
You're not in the library anymore. You're in the commercial gallery.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think with that, you know, if you're listening to, I mean, I listen to New Music Friday because I'm just curious about who's released records, and you know, that week. I think that when it had the Discovery, whatever it's called, the one, you know, I think that they haven't figured me out at all. I've stopped listening to that because that, you know, I don't know. They think I'm a coffee house kind of background, you know.
Maybe you are, but you don't realize.
Yeah, exactly.
That's an interpretation.
Yeah, I think that whatever algorithm they've got for me, they've gotten it completely wrong. So, and in anything that they've recommended so far.
Yes, Chris.
One thing I really do love, that what data has been really good at, is I don't know if anybody ever remembers the story of a woman discovering she was pregnant based upon the suggestions she was given on Amazon. Because your behavior changes. Your behavior changes in the things that you look for without realizing it. And all of a sudden, she started getting pregnancy tests as recommended products. This is like a well-documented story. And obviously, she did a pregnancy test and found out she was pregnant. And like for artists who are kind of classically, kind of amazing at communicating through art, terrible at communicating as a human being, for the most part, not always. Data can be a really interesting way to see how the world responds to you. And if you can translate that, these changes in behavior, like all of a sudden, all I'm getting is country music on my Discover Weekly. And don't get me wrong, I love country music, but I don't want to just listen to country music. But it's the kind of nuances that data can give you are things that you would never really discover for yourself. And every once in a while, it's an opportunity for self-discovery. And that's where I think kind of things like Spotify playlists, the automatically generated ones, like, I think they're really awesome. They're just a bit shit at the moment. Like,
okay.
If that makes any sense.
Interesting. So you all agree on that. My other question is, what do you think as a music fan mainly? Are you with your? We just had the RGPD European directive about privacy and data being launched in Europe, if I should say so. As a music fan, do you agree to share your privacy and your personal information with an artist that you like? Do you think that is something valuable, or that will bring you something, or is that something you're still not comfortable with?
I don't know. I mean, I think if I was 10 years old, I'd probably have a completely different view on this from being an adult. My relationship with the artists I like is very different. I think if I was 10 years old, I'd probably be very happy for, whatever the artist,
It would simply start, let's say, by an email and being subscribed to a newsletter. That is maybe the first step in between, in giving your data to somebody else.
See, I like my discovery. I like doing my discovery. I think I don't like being fed as a music fan, but at the same time, I need that discovery to be available to me. I think, and we chatted about this earlier. Like if we go to Spotify or whichever streaming service, there's no depth. Like if I listen to a playlist, and this is one of my biggest issues with it, it's like even in the discovery. What is the discovery? The discovery is to hear a new song, but where do I go from there? Like I had to go to Wikipedia to find out, who wrote it, and even then, that might be incorrect. And actually, quite often it is. If I want to get the lyric, that lyric comes from a user-generated site. I don't know if that's, sometimes I get they're not correct.
You got some license services now tied with Spotify and.
Yeah, but I was just showing him the other day. I was on Shazam, and
which is Apple.
Yeah, sorry.
Which is an Apple company.
Yeah, and and the lyric was, unless you think that, it was a lyric that clearly could not have been the lyric of that song, so somebody must have just kind of
mismatched.
No, it was actually, some of it was right, but then they'd kind of put in words or like sentences that somebody was taking the piss, clearly. Okay. So but the thing is that and the same thing when it comes to chords, anything to go deeper. For me, I want to have something certified that I know that's actually, that those were the people who wrote it. Those were the people who played on it. Not kind of hopefully that it is, and I want to be able to make a playlist from it. I want to be able to find out more about the artist in a verified way. And I think we're really so far away from that still. It's all about just discovering or making playlists at the moment. It's not for a deeper engagement with the artist.
Can I take a slightly different angle on that? Is that all right? Like going back to the question you started with around kind of GDPR and stuff, is one of my heroes is a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, And he and I share this philosophy in this thing called, we call it the frictionless society, which basically means that technology's purpose for the next 10 years is to make us feel more human and not less. And that's essentially why VR is, in my opinion, isn't really taking off and things like that, but that's a different topic. But by being frictionless, we're also creating this, it's kind of like micro hyperactive community effect online. And the young people now expect to be able to communicate with the people that they admire. You know, you take Ryan Leslie, for example, with what he doing in Superphone. And it's just, and it's kind of, he can, you know, as Benji was saying, he's got, you know, 15,000 fans earning $2 million a year because those fans expect to be able to communicate with him.
He can like pop in Austria for a New Year Eve, asking his fans if they are willing to pay $100 to spend a night with him, and he got thousands of Austrian guys in Vienna to spend the night, and he'll make some bucks out of that.
Yeah, we do the same experiments with the Rattle. It's kind of like you use data as a sense to try and build a relationship with the people who are prepared to spend money. If the business of music is about, you know, earning money, and the culture of music is about expressing a message. And so, like, if you are afraid, to my opinion, as an artist, moving into the new generation of audience, of having some part of your identity exposed, you're probably not going to succeed.
So we can say, in short, the more data an artist has, the more money he can make.
It is as a route to becoming a more successful entrepreneur.
Okay, that's interesting. I think it can be the last and final word of this panel, if you agree, gentlemen. Yeah, that was very nice, and I wish you a good game for the Belgium team against France next Tuesday. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Guillaume. Thank you, guys. Okay, guys, our last panel